charge will be defending champion and local hope, Andrew Pizzuti.
Speedway stars Mark Owen, Stuart Hearn and Rob Schofield were hard at work today, fine-tuning their cars and getting the feel of the resurfaced Lismore track that will host the Australian Modified Championships on Saturday night.
Oh, it's good actually. Yeah, it seems like it's got a bit more drive than last time. It's been slick up until now. It should be good for Australian titles on it.
A crack field will be vying for 10 finals positions using a new time trial format. The man in everyone's sights will be defending champion Andrew Pizzuti.
A strong field, and it's probably one of the strongest fields in a number of years for the title. There's a dozen drivers that could win the race, and but we're confident. We've got the car right for this track especially, and we've got a home track advantage, so we're looking good for the final, I think.
After a slow start to the season, Pizzuti is now firing on all cylinders. The mechanical bugs in his new car have been exterminated, and the Myocum man is determined not to disappoint the home crowd.
Home crowd sort of does put a bit more pressure, but you don't think of that when you get out there. Once you get out there, adrenaline takes over.
Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
A battle is looming on the cricket pitch with the sudden death semi-finals in the Interdistrict.
In Germany, the Ice Speedway. A near disaster in one race with a rider careering into the wall. Unable to regain control, he slid into the path of another bike and was dragged along for a few horrifying seconds. And speaking of Speedway, Lismore's showground is about to shake to the sounds of modified hot rods. No mystery about who the crowd will be supporting either on Saturday night. Local hero Andrew Pizzuti is out to defend his Australian title.
If today's practice run is any indication, this weekend should be one of the highlights of the Australian Speedway season. Drivers from all over the East Coast are converging on Lismore for the Australian Modified Championships. Current national champion Andrew Pizzuti wants to keep his title, but admits it won't be easy. He's going to have to work hard to keep drivers like Victorian champion Mr. Excitement at bay.
These are probably the most competitive championships in a lot of years. It's probably about a dozen cars that could that are all right up there at the top that could win it. But I'm confident I can win on my home track.
It's the first time Lismore's hosted the race, and the recent resurfacing of the track could mean new records and spectacular action.
Fast racing, hopefully not too many crashes involving me anyway. I think it'll be very hard fought racing, you know, it's Australian title on the line, so I'm sure everyone will be trying their hardest.
More than 30 drivers will contest the championship. With first place set firmly in their sights, it's going to be 30 laps of wheel-spinning action.
And as the countdown continues to the Winter Games in Liverpool.
Which is celebrating 25 years of racing. It's the first time the Australian Championships have been held on the North Coast.
Some of the local talent has used this week to perfect their driving skills in preparation for tomorrow night's big race. One of the local favourites for the Modified Championships is current Australian champ Andrew Pizzuti, who has only been racing for 4 years.
I'm relatively inexperienced, but I had a lot of help from my father who's raced many years, and I've been around Speedway for a long time, so that's helped me a lot.
The defending champ is racing a new car, which has already won 3 races in the last 2 months, as well as a second placing. He's looking forward to the challenge and is confident of recording a good time in the trials before the qualifying finals.
There's only a number of 12 cars that could win on Saturday night.
32 drivers from around Australia have nominated for the race, including a handful of local favourites such as Stuart Hearn and Steve Robinson.
Obviously included amongst them are Andrew, the current Australian champion, and Lloyd Hobson from Victoria, who's a 5-time Victorian champion. So it's a pretty strong field when you've got 2 guys heading it up like that.
The championships will feature a format new to Lismore Speedway with the inclusion of time trials to determine starting positions. The Speedway track has a brand new surface which has been run in over the last 2 meetings, and a lap record is expected to be set during the time trials tomorrow night. A full support program will also be run and racing will begin at 6 o'clock. Debbie Bevan in Lismore, Prime Local News.
Last-minute replacement David Graham has held the Australian Modified Championship held in Lismore last night. Newcastle's John Brown snatched the title after a collision between the leaders just 2 laps before the finish. Time trials and heats saw Newcastle's Dave Bryan in 65 draw pole position. Those further back were cursing their bad luck after this 9-car calamity on the second lap. There was plenty of jostling throughout the 30-lap event as sparks continued to fly. One photographer got too close for comfort. Watch the top corner of the screen. Reigning champion Andrew Pizzuti had a checkered run. After starting with the leaders, Pizzuti fell back before making a brilliant comeback. Lismore's Stuart Hearn was keeping pace, making a good recovery from this incident. But the battle for the lead was between Pizzuti and Bryan until disaster struck. Disappointment was plain. With 2 laps to go, title holder Pizzuti and Bryan, who'd led from the start, were forced to bow out. Soon after, Stuart Hearn blew his chances of a place. That left the way clear for a clean sweep for Newcastle. Brown first, Mick Turner second and Ray Tyler third. Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News. The Rugby League...
Pizzuti crashed out of the race 2 laps before the checkered flag.
After several time trials and heats, Newcastle's Dave Bryan in car 65 grabbed pole position in the 30-lap race, with more than 30 other drivers close behind trying to take the lead from the race favourites. One of those was Lismore's Andrew Pizzuti. But before the real sparks started flying, this 9-car pile-up held up the final for several minutes. The next casualty was Stuart Hearn, who was still a contender for the winner's trophy. Hearn quickly fixed the problem and was back in the race. Pizzuti fell back early and came back strong. There was plenty of aggression between Pizzuti and Bryan when the local made a strong comeback. Eventually, the rivalry between the two came to a disastrous head. The crash put both Bryan and the reigning champ out of the race just 2 laps before the checkered flag, and Pizzuti wasn't impressed. With both the favourites no longer a threat, Hearn was feeling confident, but with only a few seconds to go, he was out of the race. In the end, it was a Newcastle trifecta, with John Brown taking the flag, Mick Turner second and Ray Tyler third. Debbie Bevan in Lismore, Prime Local News.
Racing at the Australian Modified Hot Rod Championships in Lismore. A series of major crashes saw the lead change several times before Newcastle's John Brown took the crown for 94.
It's been labelled one of the most exciting races in Australian Speedway's history, the first lap of the championship setting the pace for the entire final. With all cars jockeying for a strong position, Victorian champion Lloyd Hobson became an easy target for Ray Claridge when he rolled his car, 6 others joining the pile-up. Support crews were quickly on the job, returning all cars to the field except Hobson and Claridge. With the race finally on track, Newcastle's Dave Bryan led the way, with several contenders for the title hot on his heels. Defending champion Andrew Pizzuti was behind that pack, led down by an ill-handling car. Then on the 13th lap, Rob Schofield and Mark Owen's tangle added them to the growing list of casualties. Field settled for the next 13 laps until second-placed Hearn went into a half-spin and clipped an infield tyre marker. The race was restarted, with Hearn relegated to the rear. That allowed Pizzuti to regain ground, moving to second and challenging Bryan for the lead. They clashed on turn 4 and then disaster. Pizzuti was unimpressed, blaming Bryan for the accident, but found himself out of the race also. At the restart, Brown took over position 1, trailed by Turner and Hearn. With only 2 laps remaining, Hearn made a move to the outside for an attempt at first, but a broken rear axle sent him into a series of 360s and out of the race. That left Brown to take the checkered flag, ahead of fellow Novocastrians Mick Turner and Ray Tyler.